You're listening to the Life Coaching Secrets Podcast, episode 167. Did you know that life coaches are needed now more than ever? I'm Frank Macri, founder of Thriving Coach Academy. I've trained over 1,000 coaches and helped them launch their own successful coaching businesses. If you want to make an incredible income and impact as a coach and have a lot of fun doing it, I'll show you exactly how to get it done. This is Life Coaching Secrets. What's up, coaches? In this episode, I am going to talk about decision making. I'm going to talk about how to make smart decisions and what gets in the way of people making decisions in their life. Now, I know that I haven't been on the podcast for a while, so this is really exciting to be back. I am recording from my new home in Raleigh, North Carolina. As you may know from previous episodes, I recently moved across the country from Seattle to Raleigh. Raleigh is a city on the East Coast of the USA, and this is the 6th place that I have ever called home. I grew up in New York. Then I went to Boston for college for 4 years. I lived in China for a couple of years. I've lived in Vancouver, Canada. Then I moved to Seattle, and now here I am in Raleigh. Now, aside from that, we have had so many coaches that have been crushing it over the past few months in the academy, getting results like I have never seen before. I want to give a shout out to Amal, who's one of our newer coaches. She just got started a few weeks ago, and she is living in Abu Dhabi. And it's so exciting to see the number of international students that we are getting in TCA and just doing so well with their coaching businesses. So what's been on my mind lately is decision making. And this episode's going to be extremely helpful for you because I'm going to give you some questions that you can ask yourself to make you become better at making decisions. And also questions that you can ask clients who are struggling with decisions in their lives. Now, inside the academy, we have a deep dive on the topic of decision-making coaching. So this episode, I'm going to go deep here, but we're just going to scratch the surface compared to what we cover in the academy. Now, a lot of you are not making decisions in your life. A lot of you are avoiding making decisions. So I want to talk about the importance of decisions and why they can be so hard to make at times. Now, in life, we are not taught how to make decisions. So most people end up avoiding decisions altogether, or they take a really long time to make them. So I want you to check in with yourself right now. Would you say that you are a decisive person? Do you see yourself that way? So if you see yourself as an indecisive person, if you see yourself as someone who struggles to make decisions, if you think, well, I'm just terrible at making decisions, I hope this episode supports you in seeing yourself as a more decisive person and perhaps even becoming more decisive. Now, I believe that decisiveness is one of the most important leadership qualities. It's essential to be decisive as a business owner. So perhaps through this episode, as you're listening, you can start trying on the thoughts, I'm capable of being decisive. I'm capable of making decisions and having my back. I can make great decisions. I can make fast decisions. Just try on some of those thoughts as we go through what I'm going to share with you. Now, moving across the country, let me tell you, y'all, I'm going to let the y'all out a little bit more now that I'm living in the South. It took a lot of decision making. The entire process from deciding to move to actually getting all settled in my place, it took about 2 months to get everything situated. And in that period of time, I had hundreds of decisions to make. Now, I'm not foreign to the idea of just packing up and moving to a new place. As I shared earlier, I've lived in many different places. I think perhaps the most extreme move was when I was in my early 20s when I decided I'm leaving everything and I'm going to China. Now, deciding to move at all these phases of my life, it's always been really exciting, but there's also been a lot of challenge. There have been very difficult decisions to make. And what I've learned is that the hardest decisions that we make in life are also the ones that transform us the most. And if there's one thing that I want you to take away from this episode, it is that the hardest decisions that you make in your life are also the decisions that transform your life the most. Now, a decision can only have two forms. You can either have an open decision or a closed decision. Now, an open decision is a decision that you haven't completed making yet. You're not yet sure what you want to do. You're still thinking about it. It's incomplete. A closed decision means that you're either a yes or a no, and you followed through with that decision. And the follow through part is key because you can decide on something, but if you haven't followed through on that, it's still an open decision. So just thinking about a decision you want to make does not count. It gets you nowhere. It's like when people say, yeah, I've decided I'm going to write a book, but they don't write the book, right? The decision itself is still open. Or when people say, I'm going to start a coaching business, but they don't actually move forward and get trained and move forward with that. It's just hot air that's coming out of their mouths. So you might wonder, what's the big deal of having open decisions? Like, why is that even a problem? Let me tell you, when we have open decisions in our lives, they take up space in our brain. They drain us and they will fatigue you. Life gets a lot heavier when you have a lot of open decisions piling up. Life gets lighter, though, when you can make decisions, close decision loops. Give yourself a yes or a no and follow through on that. Now, one of the biggest challenges that people have in life is they are hanging out in the land of maybe. And this is a terrible place to be. Maybe I'll ask that person to date me. Maybe I'll quit my job. Maybe I'll go move to a new city. So they're not sure what they want to do, or they're hemming and hawing about a lot of decisions. They're sitting on the fence. They're dwelling on an idea. They're processing decisions that are on their mind. When you have a lot of open decisions, they sit in your brain and they keep you from showing up at your best in all areas of your life because your brain is using energy trying to figure out what to do. So when I say being in the land of maybe, this can have many different forms. When you're being indecisive, it might look like overly researching or processing or considering something, reflecting on something, meditating on something, mulling things over, weighing your options, doing your due diligence. These are all forms of indecisiveness. These are all ways that we keep decisions open and keep life being very draining. So, moving to a new place is the ultimate example of this because the moment that you decide to move, suddenly there's so many decisions that open up. The moment that I decided to move, I had to start thinking about, okay, where do I want to move? Do I want to rent or do I want to buy? What neighborhood do I want to live in? What furniture do I want to get? And then when I actually moved to my new home, there was infinite number of decisions on how do I want to set up my house? Where do I want to put the furniture? Where do I want to hang the art? So finally getting all those decisions made, then there was a whole slew of decisions around assembling what I call my dream team. So what doctor? Where am I going to find my doctor? What clinic am I going to go to? What massage therapist do I want to hire? What about a CPA or a hairstylist? And all these other professionals that I now needed to decide on. But one of the things that I realized is the faster I made those decisions, the lighter I felt, and the more present and focused I became in my life. I knew that keeping those decisions open wasn't going to serve me. So check in with yourself right now. What's an open decision that you have in your life? A decision you haven't decided on and followed through on. Maybe it's deciding on whether you want to stay or in your job or quit your job. Maybe it's staying in a relationship or leaving in a relationship. Maybe it's deciding to become a coach or not become a coach. What is it going to take for you to close that decision loop and move your life forward. Decisions are what create our lives, right? When people say that they are stuck, it's because they're not making decisions. When people say that they're bored or they're drained or exhausted in a career, it's because they're not making decisions. When people say they're unhappy in a relationship, it's because they're not making decisions. Nothing is going to change if you don't make decisions. But when you do make decisions, it generates power. It moves life forward. Not waiting until you feel completely prepared or completely ready. The key is to start before you feel ready. Now, sometimes people say, well, I just don't know what I should do. Here's the thing. Don't ask yourself, what should I do? This is not a question that's going to serve you and catch your clients if they're wondering, I don't know, what should I do? Instead of asking yourself, what should I do? Ask yourself, what do you really want? When you tune out all the noise around you and you tune into your gut, what is it telling you? Here's another question. If you know that you're going to be just fine and God has your back, the universe has your back, what would you do? How about this? If you weren't worried about the approval of others, what would you do? Now, these are all powerful questions to ask yourself and also ask your clients if they struggle making decisions. I'm going to share them one more time. What do you really want? When you tune out all the noise around you and tune into your gut, what is it telling you? If you knew you were going to be just fine and God, the universe, has your back, what would you do? And if you weren't worried about the approval of others, what would you do? Suddenly the answers just become so clear. So I want to break down a little bit of how I decided on moving and some of the approaches I took to decision making that helped me make this happen so quickly. Because I had a few people and I told them, yeah, I'm going to move. And I said, yep, it's happening. Boom, boom, boom. I was making decisions and I had a lot of people say, wow, you move fast. It would take me so much more time before I figured out where I wanted to move and actually make it happen. So one of the questions that I asked myself was, if nothing were to change a year from now, would I be happy in the current environment that I'm in? And the answer was absolutely not. So it was immediately clear that something needed to change. If nothing changed in a year from now, I would not be happy. So I decided that I knew I wanted to live somewhere differently and I was going to explore all these cities. I had everything planned out where I was going to hop around from city to city. But once I got to Raleigh, something clicked. And it was as simple as realizing, I like it here. So if you find something and you like that thing or you like that person, right, you can just go and pursue it. You don't need to burden yourself with doing all this research or doing all this due diligence. Now, I know that sometimes people think, well, it's responsible to do a lot of research and do your due diligence. But what I think is that what's irresponsible is procrastination, delaying your life from moving forward. So what I did to honor that is I gave myself a very confined time frame on how long I was going to give myself to make the decisions. And it was like one day. I gave myself one day after I decided on Raleigh. I had one day I was going to pick a neighborhood. And then once I picked the neighborhood, I decided I'm going to give myself one day to pick a building in that neighborhood that I want to live in. And every single day I was making decisions and moving forward. So it's about keep deciding, keep going, keep doing, keep taking action. Now listen, this was not easy. This was incredibly uncomfortable for me. I really needed to stretch myself to just keep making those decisions. But every time I made a decision, I felt so much lighter. I could feel my life was moving forward. So one of the other keys to making decisions that helped me is the area, the place that I made the decision in my body. So let me explain that a little bit. I made decisions from my heart and my gut instead of my head. So when you're thinking about the decisions you have right now, when you consider those decisions, where are you currently trying to make that decision from? because our head is going to produce fear. It's going to produce excuses because our fears live in our head and they just want to create comfort. They want to keep things the same. They want to keep you in your comfort zone. But when you can tune into your heart and your gut, right, that's really where the answers lie. Now, when you make decisions and honor what your heart says, when your gut says as well, your head's going to freak out. It's going to say, but wait a second, what about this? What about that? It's going to give you all these different fears. But you know what? That just goes away. It goes away. That voice in your head calms down. And eventually what happens is you train yourself to start having that self-trust. When I was deciding so quickly on this move, my head was freaking out the whole time. And I just kept giving my fears that assurance by saying, everything's going to work out. Everything's going to be just fine. We got this. We're going to be okay. So when is the last time that you trusted your gut and everything worked out? Think about that. What did it feel like in your body when you just felt in your gut, right? What was that experience like for you, that gut feeling? Do you remember what that was like? Because our gut is always there to guide us, but you ignore it when you let your head get in the way. Now, I realize that you might hear this and think, well, yeah, what about the times when you trust your gut and things don't work out? What about those decisions that I've made in the past and I've regretted those decisions? So this is where it gets juicy, y'all. Are you ready? Here's where I'm going to go really deep, and I'm going to perhaps even challenge you if you're up for it. All those things that you think didn't work out in the past because of the decisions you made, they actually did work out, just not in the way you expected it to. It worked out in the sense that you were able to learn something that you needed to learn. So here's what I mean by this. You can look at your past decisions and you could decide that those were mistakes or those were lessons, and the choice is always yours. So when you label your past decisions as mistakes, it makes it harder for you to move forward in your life because you worry that you're going to keep making mistakes. But when you label your past decisions as lessons, it makes it easier to make decisions moving forward. You will find a way to grow no matter what decision you make. You look for the opportunities that came out of all those decisions from your past. You look for the ways that all those decisions made you a stronger person. Now, when people say, well, I just don't know, I'm so confused, I don't know what to do, this is a really hard decision, I want you to realize that decisions are not hard. Decisions are neutral. It's our thoughts about decisions that make them hard. It's the thoughts. What if this is the wrong decision? What if I regret it? So you're not confused. The decision isn't confusing. You're just afraid of making the wrong choice or making a choice you regret. But here's the truth about that. When you consider a wrong decision or a right decision, well, what makes a choice wrong? What makes a decision right? Do you want me to tell you? Because I'm going to tell you. What makes a choice wrong? You labeling it as wrong. There is no such thing as a wrong choice until you decide to label that as a wrong choice. So how do you make a right decision? You label your decisions as right. So what if you decided on the rightness of all of your decisions before you even make them? I want to say that one again. What if you decided on the rightness of all your decisions before you even make them? You know what would happen? You would only make right choices. You would start telling yourself, I'm making the right choice. How do I know I'm making the right choice? Because I know I'm going to grow from it. I'm going to learn from this. It's going to teach me something. So have you ever regretted learning something? When you think about that, right? Have you ever regretted learning something? No, because the two are not compatible. It's like how you can't be depressed and grateful at the same time, right? You cannot regret learning something because once you're learning something, it's evolving you. It's improving your life. So I used to be someone that had a lot of regrets and I questioned myself quite a bit. Now I don't have a single regret. There's no thing I wish I could have done differently or wish I had coulda, woulda, shoulda, none of that, because I've learned from every choice. I've looked at the ways that every single one of my past decisions served me. So if you label something as a regret from your past, you close yourself off from all the magic, all the lessons, all the growth that's right there. So as I shared in the beginning of this episode, I'm going to share it again. The hardest decisions that we make in life are also the ones that transform it the most, right? The decisions that have been the hardest in my own life have also been the most defining. Now, if we just made comfortable decisions all the time, life would become very boring because we wouldn't grow. So you need to make decisions that challenge you to grow, to level up, in order to make your life interesting and also to make you an interesting person, right? Life is enriched when you make decisions, especially the uncomfortable ones. So if you decide to do something and to decide on something only when it's comfortable, you stay in your comfort zone. You miss out on the growth. But if you decide on something that is uncomfortable for you, you are exiting your comfort zone. You are allowing yourself to grow. And I'll give you an example of this. I hear often people, when they're talking about investing in the academy and becoming a coach, sometimes they say, well, I was talking to someone recently on the phone and they said, I don't really feel comfortable making this investment right now. Now, those of you that know, the academy is not a cheap program because we're not a crappy program, right? This is a serious investment that people are making. And I remember I asked this person that was looking to enroll, I said, well, are you looking for this decision to be comfortable? Is that why you're becoming a coach? To live a comfortable life? And she said, well, no, I want to grow. I want to expand my life. So if you're someone who values growth, which I know all of you listening to this, you value growth, start seeing how you can make uncomfortable decisions and not wait for a decision to feel comfortable before you make it. Waiting for a decision to feel comfortable is the same as deciding to play small. So if you're looking to become a coach, it's either deciding yes or no. And the beautiful thing that happens is a huge weight gets lifted once you get started. And I've experienced this on many admissions calls with those that are enrolling. There's a lot of discomfort. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of anxiety that comes up in the moment. But then once the enrollment happens, once the tuition is cleared, once your account is created, it's like their whole body relaxes. I can hear it over the phone. Decision's made, and now they just get to move forward and enjoy all the benefits of that decision. So the irony is that about all this is that when you have a fear around regretting something, when you have this fear like you're going to make a decision and regret that decision, so you just decide to not do anything, you end up missing out on life, and then that becomes the ultimate regret. But when you make uncomfortable decisions and you learn from those decisions, you live a life you never regret. Follow me here? So I want to end by saying that success loves speed. Success loves speed. It's the people who make decisions and follow through on those decisions that get ahead in life. The people that make decisions even when they don't feel ready, even when they don't feel prepared. And it's also the people that redecide on previous decisions that they've made that are no longer serving them, right? It's important to redecide on decisions you've made in the past. You must continue to choose your life on the regular. You may have decided to be in a certain job years ago. Would you redecide to take that job today? You may have decided to move to a certain city years ago. Would you redecide to live in that city today? You may have decided to be in a relationship with someone years ago. Would you decide to date or marry that person again today? Right? We need to keep committing to the things we have letting go of the things that no longer serve you so that you can live a more conscious life, a life that is full of purpose, a life that works for you rather than against you. So I invite you to make more decisions and keep your life moving forward. All right, that's what I got on making decisions. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next episode. Hey, would you like access to powerful coaching tools you can use on yourself and clients right away? For being a listener of the podcast, I'm giving you a VIP guest pass to get a sneak peek into my coach training program. Inside, you'll learn our coaches' secret tool they use to transform their clients' lives. And you'll also get a training on how to launch a coaching business. Just head over to www.thrivingcoachacademy.com/VIP to get started. I'll see you on the inside.